And first thing is approve the agenda, and we use an agenda item to the contract for Castle Rock area.
So, Alan, if you're asking about the Castle Rock lease agreement,
Right, is that what we're adding to the agenda?
yeah, we want to add that to the agenda and a recommendation for approval.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda we need to take into consideration? No.
Alan, just for the record, your audio is horrible. You're cutting in and out.
Yeah, I'm going to use here a little bit on it. So,
you may not have the bandwidth where you at to do video and audio.
Well, I do. Maybe let me
Alan, earlier when your video turned off, your audio was better. You may want to just try to
Is
turn
that
the
right?
video off. It won't use so much bandwidth.
Okay, is that better?
That's much better.
Okay. Okay, we'll just do it this way then. You really don't need to see my shining face anyway. So anyway, we have the one addition of the contract for the Castle Rock site to the agenda. Other than that, is there any other changes? Hearing none. Okay, well, hearing none, we'll have a motion to approve the agenda.
Also move.
Second,
Okay.
Hamilton.
Motion is second to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. I will vote aye. Okay, moving on then. Nomination of a vice chair. Since Joe left us, I see that I get the distinction of moving to the chair position. Hopefully that doesn't bother anybody too badly, but we do need to appoint a new vice chair. So I will open the nominations for vice chair.
Yeah, Dave.
Oh, go ahead, Kurt.
Yeah, let me go. Thanks. This is Kurt. I'd like to nominate Brad for vice chair, if he'd be willing to accept the position.
Ralph would second that. And
Okay.
third.
Third, fourth.
I was about to nominate Andrew Hamilton, actually, but
Well, my longevity might not be that long. You probably ought to take it.
Oh, Andy. So am I hearing anything else besides Brad? I guess not. Okay. Anybody want to move to close the nominations, or?
I would move we close the nominations.
Okay, so we have the train firmly on the track for Brad. Okay. we have a second to close nominations?
I'll second, Ralph.
Okay, so we have motion and second. All in favor to close the nominations?
Aye.
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 Okay. So I guess we probably need a formal vote on that then, as far as voting to install Brad as our vice chair. So all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Welcome aboard, Brad.
Well, thank you. I'm honored.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay. Moving along here. I'm trying to do two things here. I'm trying to get my regular computer up and running too, which it's slowly doing, but so bear with me just a moment. But while it's continuing to think. Okay, minutes. We have minutes of the August 11th meeting and minutes of the August 25th meeting. Everybody had a chance to review those?
Alan, we just need to make that small change on the August 11th meeting minutes that you pointed out.
Okay, yeah, I did notice that there was a spot that the it was repeated in the minutes. What was the section of that, Rachel? Just so people know. 10 C and D, I think.
Yes.
I think 10C was the first sentence or two was repeated in 10D. And I think Rachel has corrected that.
Yep, I corrected it in the official meeting minutes to be signed.
Okay. So any further input for the minutes?
Thursday, and I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? As all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay. So, let's see here. My computer's still not doing what I hoped it would do. Do you have any public comment? Any public, Rachel, on the meeting?
There are no comments in the chat box.
Okay. Move on to payables. Is that, David, is that you or is that Rachel?
Usually it's just if anybody has questions on the payables that are presented,
Okay.
they can ask.
Okay. Any questions on the payables? Concerns? We have a motion to approve.
I'd make a motion to approve the payables as presented.
Okay. And do we have a second?
second Hamilton.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to approve the payables. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is to approve has been approved. Okay, financial report for July of 2021.
This was just provided so that you guys could see what was missed last meeting. And a more updated one will come out next month or next meeting for August.
Okay.
But if you guys have any questions on the one that's presented, answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Rachel?
Alan, I believe Chet just joined.
Oh, okay. Good morning, Chet. Okay.
Are you gonna tell him he's the chair now, Alan?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way a lot of meetings go, isn't it? If you're late or don't show up, you suddenly got a new job. Okay.
No motion required for.
Yeah. Okay.
financial report information.
Okay. Let's move on to the COVID policy.
All right, so you're aware of the COVID virus affecting the deployment at the comm center. The service provided to the public by the 911 dispatchers is a task that only that they can do, and takes many months of training to get someone to have the ability to take calls from the public and dispatch calls to the agencies. I want to thank all the board members who offered their help during this crisis that we had in taking the calls. Your support's very much appreciated. Please know that we're doing everything possible to answer the 911 calls and provide public safety to all the agencies. As of right now, we're managing this satisfactorily. We spoke of reinstating the COVID pay policy to protect the limited workforce who provide a unique skill used for public safety. We added and fine-tuned the previous policy to include suggestions made by the board. We sent out the proposed policy to the board members, which adds specific steps to be reimbursed for missing work due to being inflicted by the COVID or being exposed to someone who has COVID. It also prevents exposure by extremely limiting visitors with essential business into the comm center. It also provides an incentive to proactively combat the disease by being vaccinated. So reinstatement of the COVID policy with those additions and fine tuning, I believe is necessary to protect the comm center as best that we're able to do that. I'm available to discuss anything more. I know this provided a lot of discussion at the last meeting, so I'm available for whatever questions we got.
Okay. Any questions for David on the policy that was sent out?
Yeah, Alan, I have a question. I'm a little hesitant to speak when I'm just not sure where anything is. David, could you tell me what the incentive is for the vaccination?
The incentive, we had Frank research what other public agencies had provided incentive to get the shot, the vaccination. So the incentive is 4 hours of vacation time to get the shot and the boosters.
Okay, thank you.
So Dave, what is the back incentive for all those that went and did it on their own without wanting or requiring or requesting an incentive?
That was included in the policy. We had backdated it to January of 2021.
Is there any feedback that approach has proved to be useful? In other words, the public seems to be, and the employees seem to be split between those who would be anxious to be vaccinated to those who would be anxious not to be vaccinated. And so this is 4 hours going to sway anybody from one camp into another is the question.
I couldn't say one way or another whether or not it will or will not. This was just an incentive to try to get the people that are on the fence to get the vaccination. And I think Frank provided some examples of other public agencies that did it, but I don't think that there was any research as to whether or not they would have or would not have gotten it had the incentive been there.
David, do you have a percentage of employees that are vaccinated versus that aren't? Are the majority vaccinated or not?
When you say majority, more than 50% are vaccinated. I'm not quite sure exactly what the percentage is here, though.
Okay.
I had a question by post-dating it. Will some of the employees be able to come back and claim this benefit and have vacation time or sick time restored that they'd otherwise used?
That can be tweaked one way or another into this thing. We had stopped the policy in the middle of summer when the county was no longer doing it, and then this was what we've tried to do was we tried to take this policy from when we found that that the center was being exposed. We could put into this policy that it could be retroactive and trump what we had talked about earlier. I think it was either April or May that we took away the policy. So, I mean, that's open for discussion, sir.
Well, thank you.
Dave, would you help refresh my memory with regard to the COVID leave? I know this is really about the restoration of COVID pay for those that may be exposed and such. I recall from the last meeting, we had quite a conversation with regard to limits. How many times does an employee get to claim COVID pay? And then, would there be a continuation of 80 hours? Once those 80 are used, another 80, if that 80 is used, and on into infinity. So help explain to me how the new policy would work with regard to that limits.
Well, what I tried to do is I tried to take the comments that the board had made the last time, and we tried to reasonably come up with a policy that would first have the 80 hours available that was in the original COVID policy. There is a provision through the state that you can ask for this being off of work pay. So we put that into the policy, and then we also have sick time that they could use. But then the last and the I guess the provision of adding some hours was that we added 40 hours that they could appeal to me to see whether or not we would go to that 40 hours. And then this would be renewable every year. I don't think that this COVID thing is going away anytime soon. So it was kind of like a yearly update where you'd start out all over again in the next year. So those are the provisions or the system that we had put into this policy, where the last policy was only the 80 hours that we had.
So is there a priority to these? I mean, is it the 80 hours of COVID pay first, then the Washington paid family medical leave, then sick leave, and then an additional 40? Or You know,
If-
what's the
if-
priority?
Yeah, it would be in that order, and the last provision would be an appeal to me for that last 40 hours. So that's, as I was listening to the board, I thought that was the reasonable provisions that I put in there, and certainly that's open for discussion. I'd be more than happy to hear feedback and add to this then, or adjust it as needed.
And I'm just trying to scroll through this a little bit. Does that, David, does that priority listing, is that in the policy at all? Or is
Yes,
that-
yes, it is.
It is, okay. I was just trying to scroll through it again. I read it several days ago, but
And much of this has to do with, you know, we are forced to send people home on quarantine and that sort of thing when there's exposures. And it's, a lot of this is not due to any of the fault of the dispatchers. It's just that we have to do what we have to do to keep the center from being exposed. We just went through an exposure and spent about 3 to 4 weeks trying to reboot the operation here, where we had to clean the entire center and quarantine employees and do what we could to keep the employees that were not exposed, to try to keep them as healthy as possible. So this is kind of in response to all of that. And it's trying to keep the center as safe as possible moving forward.
So Dave, do you know, is there a limit, and maybe not, if Frank could answer, is there a limit on Washington paid family medical leave?
We had one person, I think, used, is it 3 months? I think somebody used 3 months for an illness, but that's just anecdotally, I'm trying to think of what they had used.
If I may, this is Janelle, HR generalist here. Washington State paid medical family leave is typically for up to 12 weeks. If you are approved through the state, you have to get a medical certification in order to get approved. And typically, one thing to be aware of is Washington State paid leave is only if you are sick. It will not pay you if you're required to quarantine. So it's only if you are in fact sick and have symptoms and are forced to stay home for being sick. So our policy that we put in place is to also help protect those that we are forcing to quarantine. If they use more than the 80 hours, which is very reasonable, at times quarantine is required for 2 full weeks for an exposure. So if they are required to quarantine, we feel like it is fair for us to pay them in order to protect the rest of our employees in the center to get them out if they're potentially exposed.
Well, like always, my team has saved me with the answer. Thank you.
Sure, but the quarantine is only necessary if you've got an unvaccinated individual who's been exposed. Is that correct?
As of now, yes, per CDC guidelines, if you are vaccinated, you do not have to quarantine. They do recommend, if you're vaccinated, to still get tested if you are exposed. However, per CDC guidelines, no, you are not required to quarantine if you're vaccinated.
Thank you.
And thus, that was one of the reasons why we had Frank research whether other public entities had provided an incentive to get vaccinated. I'm doing everything I can to try to incentivize the fact of getting the people vaccinated here.
Well, and Janelle, you seem to be well versed. Is it not also, regardless of whether you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, if there's a potential exposure, you're still allowed to work as long as you're masked? Because the exposure has to be validated within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes?
Yes, so exposure is defined as within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes. As you may know, many of our dispatchers do not wear masks when they're at their consoles because of their need to communicate clearly. We've had people, typically that's within 6 feet. However, sometimes it could potentially get within 6 feet. So that's where we're forced to quarantine some people that were exposed in our center. And then if they obviously are showing any symptoms, then they also, of course, will be required to quarantine as well. And we did end up having 3 positive cases in the center, as well as a 4th case that was one of our dispatchers that wasn't currently in our center though. So that's where some of this policy came from. But yes, you're correct. It is 15 minutes within 6 feet without masks.
I had a quick question on the Paid Family Medical Leave Act. Is there any lead time into that, or can an employee utilize that immediately on becoming ill? Or do they have to burn some time beforehand?
They're not required to use any of their own sick time before they can use that. However, that system run by the state can be kind of a backup. You also do have to provide a medical certification form from your doctor. So it would require you to get them to fill out that form, send it to the state. I believe there's at least 1 waiting week after the state processes it. So I think it'd probably be a couple weeks before you'd actually see any money get paid to you if you applied for that program.
Is it retroactive once you're?
It is retroactive though, yes, from the time filled out, certified by your doctor.
And Janelle, is there a limitation on that, up to $2,000 per week, or 1,000, or 80% of one's pay?
It's 12 weeks, and from my understanding, I believe it's around 90% of someone's pay. I don't know if there's a top limit dollar, at least off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think it's real similar to L&I. Doesn't quite get you 100%.
I know, I believe here at the city, individuals have used that in addition to their sick leave to make up that balance, if you will. So they're at 100%.
Yep. I'd throw out just a suggestion, and maybe to move the discussion along, that if people can qualify for paid family medical leave, that'd be the first choice, and reserve if there's any additional COVID hours for those that have to quarantine and wouldn't qualify for the paid family medical leave time.
So are you suggesting we put that in the policy, Brad?
Well, it's just as a discussion point, but I think I'd be in favor of that. If there is they qualify for the state program, I think that'd be preferable to just give them the 80 hours if they have that option available. And they can certainly use vacation and sick leave, like Kurt was saying, they do in the city, to bring themselves up to 100%. And limit the other time, if the people on quarantine that aren't symptomatic, if they cannot qualify for that, then give them some time off for that purpose to protect the center.
Too, and I'd like to piggyback on maybe some of Brad's comments. I agree with what he said there. I'm of a position where I want to support and help everyone that's done everything they could to protect themselves. So that is to say, and we just spoke a little bit about, those who are vaccinated don't need to quarantine. Those unvaccinated do. And there's a reason, I guess, and whatever their reason is, I appreciate that. But I'm not sure I could support allowing for additional COVID pay for unvaccinated individuals who still have some options available to them. The incentive that you recommended, from my perspective, is far less than what I was thinking. I mean, this is, I believe it should be a priority, and I would be willing to offer up to 40 hours to someone if they were to follow through with a vaccination. My comments. Thank you.
I do know that Frank had provided some examples of other public agencies And I believe that they were in the 2 to 4 hour range to get the shot. Do you know of anybody that would offer or had offered larger than that, Frank? If I could.
I am not aware of anything. However, things are always changing. If you would like Janelle and I to kind of review and see if there's some options out there that we're not aware of, I'm glad to contact her and see what we can find.
I'm not sure exactly where the discussion's going or whether that's up for discussion, but we'll do whatever research the board would like us to do.
Okay, board members, what direction you want to provide here?
Well, I'm hearing that we'd like to try to get as many people vaccinated as possible. So what that incentive would be, whether it's the 4 hours that we've got here, or whether we should research to see if there's something larger than that. I'm also hearing that prioritizing the hours that we offer to people to keep the center safe, we should look at the Washington State reimbursement first, and then go toward the relief that this board would have us provide. That's what I'm hearing so far as adjusting the policy for the, I suppose we're going to probably bring it back for next time to look at it. Anything else that you'd like me to provide?
I'd like to add a quick comment as it pertains to using vacation time as the incentive. As that number grows, just keep in mind that adding vacation time to someone, it has a compounding effect to the budget and coverage. Rarely does someone get to use vacation that doesn't cost the center time and a half in addition to someone being gone. So it has a compounding dollar figure as you start adding additional vacation time to staff members. I'm all in favor of appropriately compensating. I just have a small concern as it pertains to adding additional time for staff to be able to take time off as the method for getting people to be interested in the shot. Just as a side note, and then a piece on Brad's comment. I just want to be clear, kind of to Janelle's point, just a little bit is I want to see if we can maintain an avenue where people who we do have to quarantine. I'm just fearful if we have folks that have to quarantine and we require them to use their own sick time first, whether or not that's going to be a prohibitor, I guess, maybe in a staff member who might have had an exposure coming forward and had an exposure. I need to be out if we're going to require them to be out and use their own sick time.
Well, some of the things that Jerry had brought up, we've obviously got put into the policy that people are not allowed to enter the center if they experience any of the symptoms and things like that. So adults have to be adults and make sure that they don't come into the center when they're sick. So that's number one. But the other thing, to Jerry's point about it does cost us on the back end. I just want to point out that we did do what we could to solve this deployment problem. We've currently got 6 people in a academy class that, and I know that hope is not a strategy, but I do hope that 6 people at the end of April or May of next year become qualified. And then a lot of this time and a half issue goes away at that point, because there is more deployment here to take care of that. And this board already took care of that as far as allowing us to hire more people. So, so currently, as Jerry talks, yes, it is a problem, but as we go along and move into next year, I believe that we've taken steps to solve those issues that Jerry brings up.
Okay. Could we perhaps have Frank or whoever's been doing the research take a look and see what other places are doing as far as that prioritization? And then as well as the incentive, if there's anything else incentive wise out there, just to try to help move this along. And then we can come back and take a look at that again this next time, the next meeting, and then hopefully be able to wrap this thing up.
Yes, sir.
Hey,
that sound like-
Dave,
Yes.
did you guys determine the actual amount of COVID pay that was available to the dispatchers and then, or the entire staff, and then how much was actually used over the last 18 months?
Yes, there was an email sent out to all the board members last week. If you recall from me, I believe I have it pulled up here on my desk. Let's see.
Very few people had taken advantage of this benefit that was voted in. So
About
Janelle?
6 people, and only about 10% of the total approved hours. So technically we had a bank of 2,400 COVID hours, paid hours that we approved, and we have only used 252 hours of that. So about 10%. So if there was a concern about this being abused or people taking their 80 hours just because they want 2 weeks of vacation, that's definitely not occurring in our center. Our dispatchers are very, very dedicated, and we had very few actually use this paid COVID leave when the policy was in effect.
And one of the alternatives that we did use was people that were able to work from home while they were quarantined. We didn't just stop operations here. We had many people that used that time at home to do projects that they could do at home. So we're trying to be as thoughtful as we can as we move forward in this thing and utilize our workforce the best that we possibly can.
Okay. Okay, I think, do you have enough information, Dave, to move forward with this, to gather a little bit more information then?
I've summarized what I think you guys are looking for, and then I also heard some things that that you'd like me and Frank to work with, and Janelle to bring back a policy to you next time, and we'll send it out in advance like we did this past time, and hopefully we can get some sort of consensus on where we would go in the future. So yes, I do believe I've got enough information to move forward.
Okay, great. We'll move on then. Move to number 9, approval of the Signal Peak contract.
And that's going to be Deanna.
Okay, the last couple meetings, we've talked about this Signal Peak agreement. It's a renewal from a site that I think we've been there forever, but forever's a long time. At least since we did the major radio overhaul back in like 2005. We have 5 racks at this site. There were some concerns or questions that the board wanted answered as far as, was it a reasonable fee? I believe it was at $22,500 a year. And the escalation amount, could we get that reduced instead of it at 4%? They did agree to lower that to 3% escalator annually. I reached out to Cressa and Lewis County to kind of get some numbers as far as what they're paying for private sites. And they provided me with information for both some of the private sites and government-owned sites. And they're substantially different. So Clark County has a private site where they're renting the land only, and they're paying $74,362 a year. They have another site where it's tower and land, government owned. They're paying $22,403 a year. The 74,000 one was a privately owned. They have another with the utilities where they're renting the land and space on a tower. It's just shy of 20,000 a year. They have another government entity, land only, that they're renting. They own the tower and the shelter, and they're paying just under 6,000 a year. They do have one private site, and it's land only. And they have some people that are co-locating, so they share the cost, and the fee just for the land is $11,655 a year. They have another one that is the land, shelter, and the tower. It's $38,000 a year. They have another one that's privately owned. It's land, shelter, tower. It's $45,725. Another one that is government and privately owned, that's $15,800 a year at that same site, which it's actually Spelei, and it's our tower, our shelter, and the property is privately owned, which we lease. And their second contract there is $19,361. And then when we go to Lewis County, their fees, they have, I don't know that I want to give the entities out, but they have a private contract, a privately owned property, and they co-locate there with 4 other departments, and they pay $4,000 and then $4,500. So that might be because they have multiple people at that site. They have some where they've just worked out an exchange. So a government entity may reside on something that they own in exchange for them residing, so there's no fee. They have another one that is privately owned, and they're paying $3,600 a year. And they have another government entity. There's no fees. They have a sublease with a government entity. It's $250 a year. They have a partnership with a public safety entity. It's $350 a year. They have a partnership with a school district. It's $3,100 a year. Another with a privately owned, it's $3,500 a year. Theirs are all like that. One's $2,000, one's $1,700, one's $2,300. Again, I don't know what they have there because they didn't list that, if there was, the shelter, if it's just the land or what. So if that gives you any indicator, the sites, I would say since cellular became so popular, they want to put sites everywhere, cellular sites, and it costs money to run those. And I know that the communities want people to co-locate, entities to co-locate, so that they don't have a tower every block. So they really kind of, the demand has increased, I guess. So the prices are really all over the place. I did ask about the clause that they had in there on the utility fees and the road maintenance. And the reason that they have that in there is the transfer costs. So DNR owns the property and they charge Day Wireless fees for having their tower and facility on that property. And this is so that they can transfer those fees to us or our share of them. So we pay $100 a year for road maintenance. Our standard utilities are included in our rent. But if we did, something outside of that, that increase the utility bill, then they would charge us separately for that. Does that answer everybody's questions?
Well, it sounds like these costs are just going to continue to go up as demand increases. So, but I appreciate the fact that you were able to negotiate that 1% down. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but over compounding time, I think that is a help. So, board members, what do you want to do?
I'd make a recommendation, we approve the Day Wireless agreement for Signal Peak.
Okay, so take that as a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Chet? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Why don't we go ahead and insert the Castle Rock agreement in here as well? Make it like a 9A, I guess.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, on that one. I'll get that finalized with Day Wireless. Okay. Now we have the US Cellular contract. And gosh, Frank, how long have we been working on this one? So this has been vetted by Frank, our attorney, and by WCIA, our insurance provider. This is an agreement that the school district actually went into with US Cellular when US Cellular contacted them to put a tower on the district's property by the high school. So we have just been in negotiations for what the language looks like and the insurance things and all the legal schmeagle stuff in this, 53-page contract. The back portion of it that we have attached, I had just asked that they attach that original agreement that they had with the school district so that in the future, when none of us are around anymore, people know what happened and why they are not charging us anything to put public safety equipment at that site. So we'll have the cost, for putting in power, and we'll pay our own power with a separate meter. But as far as US Cellular or the district charging us anything, there won't be any fees for that.
So that's why there was no fees listed in the agreement. Okay.
Yep. Correct.
So I guess my only question on that then is, do we need something in the agreement that actually states that, or if we just put a $0 amount in that box or opening in the agreement, does that suffice?
So we tried to do that, Alan, and they came back and said that is why we put in there that was intentionally left blank, or
Yeah, they said something to that effect. Yeah.
something like that.
It's under number 4 there, so.
Okay, and so we kind of went back and forth on that, and that was the intentionally omitted on the fees. And that was part of the reason why I asked them to also include that original agreement that they had with the school district. Because in that agreement, it talks about, I don't remember the terminology that they use, but in order for them to build that site there, a stipulation to the agreement with the school district was that you allow public safety to put public safety equipment on that tower as well, at the top of the tower.
Okay.
And Frank, you can interject there as far as.
Yeah, I mean, that made sense to me. Our argument was about insurance for a while, but we eventually solved that with the right choice of language. Was there something particular you wanted me to comment more than that, Deanna?
The back and forth about intentionally omitted under the fees, and then me asking them to add that other piece, the original contract that they had with the school district that kind of spelled that out, that said there won't be any costs to public safety, and that we would have a section at the top of that tower to put equipment. We've done a lot of contracts.
Yeah, we have.
I was just wondering if maybe instead of just says intentionally omitted, or just put a note there that said see school district agreement or something like that. My fear is, I guess, is that in a year or 2 or 3, as maybe some of us are no longer involved, that somebody comes back and said, oh, well, what was this number, or what was this? And it just says intentionally omitted. Can we just have a note there maybe, or that says to see that in the agreement?
I mean, we can go back and ask Alan, but we have literally been working on this contract for probably at least a year with attorneys and insurance folks and US Cellular. And then they have a company that they work with, Pyramid, that basically does their kind of in between negotiating.
And part of this is also just driven whether the site is a gotta have or whether we can negotiate. I mean, there's other sites out there. Sometimes you can solve it by going another site that gives you the same coverage. But if you have a unique coverage and they have the rights and you don't have counter rights, then you either take it or you accept the problem with the coverage. And of course, you have to have overlapping coverage as well. So those are issues that Deanna and I sort of routinely face and have to try and work out with Dave.
Yeah.
And Alan, sorry.
Alan,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Deanna. I'm sorry.
Sorry. In addition, back in 2016, I had also sent a letter to the city council in Castle Rock because there was a type of moratorium where they would not have been able to build that site, but because they were going to allow us to put public safety equipment on that, it was an influencer to, I think, the council to be not as opposed to this big brown tower at the high school. So.
Okay, well, like I said, the price is a very, very good price.
The price is a good price.
Yeah, I would not, I just wanted to have some, and maybe it's just a note on our side of it when we file this, that just make sure that we keep those documents together. Something to that effect. I'm just fearful that, like I said, down the road, if we lose some institutional knowledge about the background on some of this stuff, that it might become confusing. So
that's the way that I prefer to go with this. I have watched the hard work that Deanna and Frank have done on this the entire year that I've been here, and I can tell you that, I mean, this thing has been worked on consistently, It hasn't been put on the back burner or anything like that. So I would go with that, putting those notes in for the institutional knowledge.
Okay.
I had a question for Deanna. Do you know how long the agreement between the school district and US Cellular is good for? I saw something reading through there. An old agreement for 2008 was a 5-year term.
Yeah,
There's numerous addendums to that.
I know. I don't off the top of my head. I don't, but I could find out, Brad. I'm just trying to scan through here real quick. And you know, that's probably actually a good point, Brad. That I don't think the school district's going to change their mind about, you know, wanting us to occupy that location. And US Cellular, you know, in the future would have to renew the terms to this agreement at some point. So anyway, let me find out and I'll shoot an email to you.
Deanna, we don't have any equipment installed currently, correct?
No.
Where are we at on the BB Road tower site purchase?
We're not. Can we discuss that in an executive session?
I just thought, even though the price is right on this tower, on this lease, and if we intend on going to BB Road, and we don't have anything installed right now, we would be spending money to, anyways, okay.
And Deanna, I did look, it looks like the latest addendum was executed February of 2017 for a 5-year term. So it looks like their 5-year term will expire February of 2022. So it might be good to just see where that process is to make sure it has at least a 5-year lifespan to it.
Okay, I can check with the school district. I have a contact up there.
So do we want to move ahead with this now, or do we want to wait for that information?
Well, I'm really curious about BB Road because I to spend money to install equipment and then turn around to potentially spend money to uninstall equipment to then install it on a site that we build or that we purchase doesn't quite make sense to me. But
Alan, just so you know, this was a discussion with a executive session. So that's not an alternative yet. Let's put it that way.
I would concur discussion of real estate where open conversation could impact cost. If we wish to discuss that now.
Right, I agree that should be executive session topic. And I guess I'm just trying to get a feel from the board if we want to hang on to this agreement and until we can schedule an executive session, or do we want to move ahead with it now? I guess there's nothing in the agreement that says we have to start installing equipment immediately. And we do have the option in it, as I read, with notification that we would be bowing out of the agreement. So anyway, what's the board's feeling? Do you want
As far as further information, I know that the Castle Rock school site has been a priority since I've been here. Any other discussion on other sites would just be complementary to that. So I just wanted to throw that in, that this has always been a priority for the entire year that I've been here.
And this, we don't have another site at this time that would replace coverage based on the coverage that this site gives us. So it's not like there's an overlap that says, you know, we can use this site instead of this site.
And if I may, this is the sort of conversation that would need to be an executive session. I believe.
Yeah, so I was going to suggest that I'll entertain a motion to approve this agreement. And as it sits, and then we can schedule an executive session to discuss other real estate opportunities, perhaps at the next meeting, so that staff has time to gather that information together. If there's anything new on that. Does that make sense?
Well, from my perspective, it almost sounds like maybe we should have an executive session first before moving forward with this agreement, because there might be additional information conveyed that could make a difference in our decision on this matter.
I concur with Kurt.
Okay, other board members?
I concur with Kurt and Vic.
Okay,
Ditto.
okay. So we'll table this and then let's schedule an executive session for our next meeting. It's probably premature to do that now. Is that going to cause any issues with this agreement, Deanna?
Nope.
Okay.
And Frank or Dave, could we have the exec session at the beginning of the meeting? Would that be helpful? Because I know most recently we've had it at the end. And
It's whatever y'all would like to do. There is no order for executive sessions. If you prefer to do it at the beginning, that's fine. And we can always, at the regular meeting, if you want to have a follow-up, you can always add it.
I was just thinking in terms of our discussion, you know, if we had it at the beginning of the meeting, maybe we'd all have better understanding, or if there was an action item later on in the meeting on this agreement again, as such, we might have the information we need so that we could move forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. We can make sure the executive session is prior to this subject on the next agenda.
Can you do the executive session today, or do you have to wait until the next meeting? I mean, I'm prepared to discuss if you guys are.
Okay, and I was just thinking next meeting because I was trying to think of you guys, but if you have all that information, we can certainly do that. Frank, I don't think there's any procedural issues with that, is there?
No, this is a regular meeting. So, you know, if the board wishes to add an executive session, that's one of the benefits of a regular meeting versus a special meeting, is you can change it if you need to. So if the board would like to have a general discussion now, you know, so we can get some sort of feedback, and then the next time we meet, if you want more discussion, we can. And then if that's what the board needs to be comfortable with the recommendation.
Okay. Okay, well, let's move into executive session then. And Rachel, is there anybody that needs to be separated out?
Do we know the length of time that we're talking about for this executive session? Are we talking 15 to 20 minutes or longer or shorter?
I think 10 to 15 minutes would be plenty.
Okay, so why don't we say 10 minutes, and if we need, we can extend it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so Rachel, are we good, or do we need to move somebody to a different
You're
status?
good. I'm about to send you all to a breakout room.
Okay, does that make us have to do something here?
Yep, just accept the breakout room invitation.
Okay, I see.
Okay, there we go.
Roy, did you kick yourself out on purpose?
I did. I thought you accidentally session. I'm just the second since Brad.
So alternates can be an executive session.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I'm like 6 other things at once, so.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right.
I'm just gonna say that this is the most boring chat room ever, Jerry.
Right?
I know,
Come
right?
on.
And well, I unmuted and I was gonna chat you up, but then it was like, you said you were doing other things, multitasking, and I'm like, oh, okay, I won't bug you.
I'm just trying to make a good presentation to have adequate staffing for our, I don't know, 50-some thousand citizens we got to serve.
Yeah. Yeah, it just, it's just amazing. With the sentiment in the public. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm trying to get us back to,
Like 1980 levels or something, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm trying
you
to
guys
add
like
more
way under.
deputies. The irony is that the number of deputies I'm trying to staff us to, we actually had that in 2008 and 2009.
Okay.
With an additional 7 civilian court security employees.
Wow.
So I think that 13 years later, we can at least get those deputies back. We're contracting court security now for a lot less.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
trying.
Well, that's like us. I mean, when these 6 are all 100% of them successful, we'll be at unprecedented numbers for the first time in 30 years. I mean, but anything short of that is, I mean, we're going to have another class after this just to meet numbers with the number of people that are on the verge of retirement and people who have essentially told us that they're going to pull the plug in the near future. I mean,
yeah. Oh, we're in the same boat. I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3. We've got one that's just got to do his poly and psych.
Yeah.
Conditional offer, and then we've got 2 new ones that are academy next month. This third one might not be till January.
Yeah.
And I think more positions to hire, and then Todd McDaniel's going to go.
Yeah.
So
Melissa's probably next year first. I don't know if it'll be first quarter. She's kind of wrestling with how soon she wants to really pull the plug. Tracy could go any minute. Todd is 30 months or something. I guess who would be next? Suzanne is 3 years or something.
Somehow we became the old guys, Jerry. I don't get it.
Right. I mean, honestly, I'm looking at 4 years, and it's like, there's days where I look at it and go, I don't see my future. I don't see how I can make 4 years.
Like, yeah. I've got 6, but I don't know. If I have to keep sparring with the legislature and something shiny comes along,
I
could be tempted.
Hey, I got to step out. I got to go. We're working with 3 today, so I got to relieve one of the dispatchers so they can go to a Cairo appointment and get better. So I'll still be signed in, but I'll be a ghost.
Got it. I'm doing the same. I'm just waiting until they call my name.
Right on.
See ya.
Roy,
Yeah.
do you know much about Zoom and how to use breakout rooms?
Just probably enough to get in trouble.
Okay.
I didn't think that I was supposed to be in the executive session. I didn't think the alternate was supposed to be there if the primary was. That was just my misunderstanding.
Yes, ma'am. How do I do that?
I don't know. It says
Did?
Yep.
Screen share. That work? Okay. Gonna kick you guys out. Sorry, it doesn't let me just do it automatically, so you guys have to go back in.
We just got kicked out of executive session.
Okay, I will put you back in. You guys want 10 minutes?
Or hang on a second. I mean, or Deanna, I mean, it seems like we now that we sort of understand what they're looking for, would you prefer to, I mean, because we can start the next regular session with an executive session, and that might give us time to have something more graphical so that the board members can see better what we gain or lose with a particular site. I take that as a yes. Deanna? Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yep.
Okay. So it sounds like we'll table the Castle Rock site agreement, and then we'll schedule another executive session for our next meeting prior to the us having further discussion on the Castle Rock site. And then perhaps Deanna could give us the coverage information that was being discussed, what that new site may be able to provide us.
That makes sense to me as a way to get our arms around this.
Okay. Is that good with the rest of the board?
And Alan, I showed that there was a motion to table in a second, but no vote taken.
Oh, did we? I didn't know that we had done that. So do we have a motion to table, or did we have a motion to table? Who did that?
Saha made the motion and then Lutzow seconded.
Okay. I'm a little bit of a loss there, but anyway.
Well, I think Kurt was just throwing it out there, and Vic concurred and I concurred, as did Andy Hamilton. So I think, I don't know if it's actually a motion, just a suggestion.
Okay.
And I concur with Brad's overview.
Okay.
Well, I make a motion that we table.
Ah, there you go.
I'll,
Good
I'll
job.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. That makes me feel a lot better about my Alzheimer's or dementia or whatever. Okay. All in favor of tabling?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries, and so we'll take this up again next meeting after we have another executive session regarding real estate. Let's see here. I guess we're at number 10, Day Wireless Maintenance Contract Extension.
Yeah, I'd like to move this to the next meeting. I needed to talk to Frank about some stuff on this thing first. So
okay.
I didn't catch it when we were doing the agenda earlier. Sorry about that.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and pull that off then until next meeting. Board, do we have any board comments or committee reports since the Law TAC or Fire TAC had a chance to meet? I know they were going to meet sometime this month, but I don't know if it's
Law
occurred.
TAC is going to meet next week.
Next week. And I'm guessing Fire TAC is probably the same.
They meet Monday, Alan.
This next Monday? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just move on to the director's report then.
All right, I'll try to make it as quick as possible. Our staffing remains constant this week with 16 dispatchers and 1 trainee on the floor. We have 6 trainees in the classroom ready to hit the floor in about 2 weeks. 1 dispatcher is still off long-term illness, but feels like she may be able to return to duty somewhere in October 2021. Our 4 employees with COVID and all the quarantined individuals have returned to duty at the comm center. With the help of Kelso Captain, we did select Shelley Reeves for the open supervisor position. She will supervise the night watch starting September 26, and she'll also help out dispatching on that watch too. So we shouldn't lose any coverage. We will help to get the new, and she's also going to help get the new center prepared for opening early of next year. Climate and culture. We've been short-staffed all year, and that takes a toll on the current employees. There's a sense that this new academy class will eventually help out on the floor, but they do have months of training ahead. Getting the new trainees in the classroom and the one trainee on the floor qualified has become a focus of the entire staff, who all have volunteered to help to train. This is a team effort, and I welcome their great attitude on this subject. It's a pleasure to work with these dispatchers. We're certainly lucky to have them. Facility update. The fix to the sewer connection issue has been completed, and it did not affect the overall schedule. And we have gotten the pole camera installed, and it's been working since the Labor Day weekend. Anybody that wants the connection to that, you're more than welcome to get that. I can send that out. The radio update, the Hall of Justice, working on the Hall of Justice had occurred, but the connection had an issue, so we're gonna have to try another day. Preparation and work on this project occupied most of the time devoted by Day Wireless in the past couple of weeks. So that's been really the focus as far as the radio issues. And we're gonna have to come back and try it again and see if it can work the next time. Baker's Corner, we're still answering all the questions the city of Longview has for permitting, and there's no other updates on the following locations: Rainier Hill, Columbia Heights, Kalama Radio Connection, the Columbia County Tower, and the Woodland Tower. There's no updates as of the last update that I gave you. Any questions on radio sites? Like I said, most everything has been put into getting the Hall of Justice working, and then it didn't work. So.
Okay.
All right, and then moving on to analytics, and remember that I'm discussing the month of August, which was the month that we were hit by COVID, and so the month of August had the staffing issues and the related quarantines. This affected the call answering rate. We answered at 93.21% within 10 seconds. Our internal goal is handling 95% of the calls within 10 seconds. That obviously was not met. If you wanted to find out where we handled the 95% goal, that was at 11 seconds. So we were 1 second off the goal. So that's concludes the director's report.
Okay, any questions for David? Hearing none, we'll move into old business. Any old business we need to bring up? Hearing none, we've already figured out the executive session schedule. I don't think we need another one today. So we're up to adjournment unless somebody has some announcement they need. And David, I for one would like to get a link for that video site. I don't know if others would, but I certainly would.
I'll send it to the board.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Nothing further for the board. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.